Being woke is like a magic moral time machine where you judge everybody against what you imagine you would have done in 1066, and you always win.
Bill Maher, a critical look at woke culture. Bill Maher has become one of the most vocal critics of woke culture, often addressing its impact on free speech, comedy, and political discourse. His unapologetic stance has sparked debates, particularly regarding cancel culture and political correctness. This blog explores Maher's critiques of woke ideology, including his concerns about its influence on society, comedy, and even education. Maher's challenge to woke ideology. Maher frequently expresses frustration with how woke culture has, in his view, distorted the original principles of liberalism. He has stated that the movement, which initially focused on equality and social justice, has evolved into a force that often undermines open debate and free speech. In interviews, such as his appearance on The View, Maher highlighted the disconnect between traditional liberal values and modern woke culture.
The problem with communism, and with some very recent ideologies here at home, is that they think you can change reality by screaming at it, that you can bend human nature by holding your breath. But that's the difference between reality and your mommy.
Which he argues is more about virtue signaling than meaningful change. The absurdity of supporting extremism. One of Maher's most provocative critiques revolves around how some woke activists have, in his view, shifted to extreme positions. He has pointed to instances where American protesters have shown support for groups that historically would have been viewed as enemies of democracy, such as Hamas. Maher argues that this reflects how dramatically political discourse has shifted, and he uses these examples to illustrate how woke culture, in his opinion, distorts American values. Woke culture's reach and cancel culture. Maher often rails against the far-reaching effects of cancel culture, which he sees as a tool to punish people for actions or statements from their past.
If I wore that, I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum. You tried to be a white breakdancer. You wanted to marry Scott Baio. I read Ayn Rand. I smoked. I was into numerology. Yes, because we hadn't then grown into the persons we would become. And humanity writ large is just the collective version of that. Did Columbus commit atrocities? Of course. But people back then were generally atrocious. Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception.
He views the culture of digging up old comments and behaviors to shame or cancel individuals as unjust and harmful to free speech. He has criticized Hollywood, academia, and even sports organizations for enforcing politically correct standards that, according to him, limit open dialogue and create fear of dissent. Hypocrisy in woke culture. Maher's central criticism of woke culture is its perceived hypocrisy. He argues that while the movement preaches tolerance and understanding, its tactics often reflect intolerance and authoritarianism. This contradiction is particularly evident, he suggests, in the way woke culture silences those who disagree with its positions, effectively canceling people for their opinions. Maher advocates for a return to true liberal values, where free speech and open debate are prioritized.
I think the younger generations have a real problem with wanting to build their identity around being a victim. They want to have racism to fight, not fight racism. Have racism to fight so badly that when it's not there, they make it up. And there's enough real racism in the world that making up more doesn't help.
Free speech and comedy under attack. As a comedian, Maher is deeply concerned about the impact of woke culture on comedy. He has frequently spoken about how the increasing sensitivity around topics like race, gender, and politics has created a hostile environment for comedians, who now face the risk of being cancelled for pushing boundaries. In a discussion with Piers Morgan, Maher argued that comedy relies on the ability to address uncomfortable topics, and that stifling this freedom endangers the art form itself, but academia and the future of critical thinking. Maher has also expressed concern about how woke culture is affecting academia. He believes that universities, once bastions of free thought and debate, have become environments where activism often overrides educational standards. According to Maher, this shift undermines the purpose of higher education, which should encourage critical thinking and the exploration of diverse ideas. The debate on trans issues.
It's not my fault that the party of FDR and JFK is turning into the party of LOL and WTF. Members of Congress tweeting things like cancel rent, cancel mortgage, and no more policing or incarceration, declaring that capitalism is slavery, canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, and now an emoji for pregnant men. Real, I'm not making it up. California just passed a law requiring large retailers to have a non-gendered toy section. A non-gendered toy section? Isn't Ken enough?
One of the most controversial aspects of Maher's critique of woke culture is his stance on the trans debate, particularly as it relates to children. He has voiced concerns about gender-affirming treatments for minors, suggesting that such decisions may have long-term consequences that need careful consideration. Maher advocates for a cautious approach, emphasizing the need for open discussion rather than immediate acceptance of current trends.
Never forget, children are impressionable and very, very stupid. Kids don't know why mom drinks every day or why dad has 2 cell phones. Maybe the boy who thinks he's a girl is just gay, or whatever Frasier was. Maybe the girl who hates girly stuff just needs to learn that being female doesn't mean you have to act like a Kardashian. Maybe childhood makes you sad sometimes, and there are other solutions besides hand me the dick saw. And look, I'm sure the vast majority of parents do not take this lightly, and that it's very hard to know when something is real or just a phase. And I understand being trans is different, it's innate. But kids do also have phases. They're kids, it's all phases. The dinosaur phase, the Hello Kitty phase. One day they want to be an astronaut, the next day you can't get them to leave their room. Gender fluid, kids are fluid about everything. If kids knew what they wanted to be at age 8, the world would be filled with cowboys and princesses. I wanted to be a pirate. Thank God nobody took me seriously and scheduled me for eye removal and peg leg surgery.